The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Okay, welcome to another edition of the Earnestly Speaking podcast. I'm your host, Ernest. EJ Christian coming to you on a Thursday night here in South Florida. I just went to bed. The house is quiet. All is good. On the line, of course. We're in the pod. And our political correspondent. I'm about to call him that now.
I think that's kind of become my lane, hasn't it?
Well, you're pretty much the only other person. Only you. I think only you and my buddy Zach. And to be honest with you, Zach doesn't talk as much on the show because, you know, just because circumstantial more than anything else. But you definitely are the political guy on this podcast. No about that. Marc Francois is with us.
Well, and I think we've talked about this on the pod before. I'm very unapologetic about it. I have political aspirations. I intend to run for Congress probably in the next 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be fascinating when that time comes. Obviously, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely have a knack for it, a desire to do it, and I believe it. And I think you'll. And
being an entrepreneur, unfortunately, has a lot more downtime at times.
Yeah.
In my line of work than I would otherwise enjoy, and so I've been doing the last 2-3 years. Been doing a lot of history, foreign policy. That's international relations, stuff like that.
So you're
fed by my political.
So you're Bloomberg light.
Oh Jesus,
Lord.
Hardly.
We'll get to that in a second. We'll get to Bloomberg. He'll be a little topic on the show. So obviously you sound on the weather. You were sick all week, huh?
Oh yeah, it was funny because I went down to San Diego for a friend's birthday and came home with a proper hangover. You know, because guys my age shouldn't go out like that anymore. But it was
what are you, 34? What are you, 34?
I'm almost 36.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I guess. I mean, but for me, it's more about lifestyle. I wouldn't mind going out a little more than I do. I just can't. I have 2 kids that depend on me every day.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is it's part of my job. So it's been a part of my life, kind of. It's just doing it differently.
You know, it's bad when. So today I had to run errands. So I took my youngest son to my mother-in-law. You know, obviously my older one's at school, so I had to run errands today. So I had to get my SUV. We had to get that oil change and rotating tires, all that, and I got other things I take care of. And it's funny. I love my kids to death, but those 3 hours were kind of whoa. This is weird.
Kind of the best 3 hours you've had all week.
Yeah, I actually went to a little restaurant to eat for a little bit, and then I took care of my errands. Then I went to the side, a nice soubrette stand nearby to get a hot dog and a Coke, and I was actually enjoying my alone time for 3 hours. It's just strange because I don't get a lot of that anymore. You know what I mean? It's weird.
No, I absolutely get it. It's funny because my brother-in-law and I joke about that. He and his wife always bring my girlfriend and I everywhere with them because it makes it so much easier for them to enjoy the day when there's 4 adults and 2 kids.
Yeah, it kind of buffers
it brings the over. Yeah, it just balances all the chores. Well, and it's she and I are both really good with their kids, so and they like us. So when we go to Disneyland, the adults can go on the grown-up rides, and we'll do the Little Mermaid ride 6 times because the girls love Ariel.
Right. Yeah. Well, we kind of have that too with my wife's best friend. And her husband.
Okay.
They don't have kids yet, but when we go to Disney once in a while, they'll come with us. So if they go out somewhere and the kids are with us, they'll hop along and they kind of buffer, kind of like a little buffer. It's kind of cool, and it does help actually when you outnumber them because they're tough. Especially my boys.
No, man, I got a. It was funny because we recently did a week in Maui with her entire family. And so each of her 2 sisters each have 2 kids. And so we were trying as much as possible to, everybody stay together and do stuff as a family and all that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like every night when my girlfriend, like we had our own little like master suite kind of. It was actually a really cool house that they rented. But every night when we would go to bed, we're just like, man, the kids are so much, especially when there's 4 of them and none of them want to do the same thing at the same time. It's 4 kids under 4.
Oh my God! Is it twins? Any twins involved in it?
No, but so the oldest one just turned 4 on Valentine's Day.
Okay.
The other one and her cousin turns 4 in September. And then they each have a little sister that are like.
Oh, it's not 4 of their kids. It's 4. It's 2.
Yeah. So
okay.
each one has 2 kids that are 2 years apart.
Okay. So obviously you're sick all week. So it wasn't coronavirus, was it? No.
No, I don't imagine it was. Probably just the good old-fashioned flu. It was. Well, it was funny though because I had it. What it turns out though is like I thought I had a ruthless hangover, and it probably wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I was just getting the flu.
What do you think about all that? What do you think about the hype about the virus? I mean, what do you think? Overhyped? Whatever?
Well, okay. So I'm of many minds about this because there's a couple distinct conversations to have. A lot of the depictions in the media have been tone deaf at best and, like, in some cases, racist at worst. Sorry, I just have to give credit where credit's due as we're sitting here recording. Mm-hmm. The Clippers are playing in Houston right now with 7.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
They're up 24, and they just emptied the Houston arena.
Ah.
There's like maybe 20% occupancy.
That's why I keep telling you the Clippers is still going to be a problem in the playoffs because they're just not Houston, the Clippers.
But anyhow, so no, look, there is a very definite concern. Like, so here's the thing. Let's talk about some of the facts around this. Influenza kills literally tens of thousands of people just in the United States every year. The fact is, the people who are most at risk are those with chronic health conditions, particularly respiratory conditions, but not limited to things like diabetes or autoimmune diseases like lupus. Those people are going to have a much higher probability of being affected by the flu, really any illness, though. What's different about this one is that it does have a significantly higher mortality rate than your average influenza bug. Currently, it's about 3.5%, 3.4% per the latest WHO numbers today. That is a matter of concern, particularly because we don't have a vaccine for it, and we can't for 12 to 18 months because of science. So those are all legitimate concerns.
Right.
However, all the masks, all the bullshit, like wash your hands, don't touch your face, don't go to sporting events if you don't have, like, just be if you're sick, stay home. And then there's a whole other conversation we can have about people who are working, not being able to do that. There was a funny tweet I saw on that effect too, that was like, to all the rich assholes who consistently vote against Medicare for all, how do you think all the food service workers that don't get sick time in all the places you like to eat are staying home? Nah, they're coming to work and coughing all over your steak.
Yep.
Because they can't afford to stay home because of the system under which we live. And that's how do you feel now?
And that's a sound like, I mean, obviously you're a business owner, so you're not anti-business, you're not anti,
of course not. But for example, I was just talking about this with a friend of my girlfriend's. He's a sound engineer for like concerts and live performances.
Right.
And he travels the world, like doing, for instance, when they'll do like a live orchestra with a movie, he'll do like the mixing boards and the sound editing for that. He was just in Taiwan this week. Oh. And he said, for example, he was talking about like how everywhere you go, like in the hotel he's in, they have like a housekeeper basically stationed in the elevator, and every time someone takes a ride, they wipe the buttons down. And everywhere you go, there's like a doorman in basically every building spraying your hands with hand sanitizer as you walk in. And everywhere you go, people are basically government healthcare worker, like basically the equivalent of CDC officials are sitting around with temporal scanners and taking everybody's temperature.
Right.
And so my girlfriend asked him the question, well, what happens if somebody actually tests positive and needs like to go to the hospital? Who's going to pay for that? And I said, well, the Taiwanese government. And she looked at Mikey and he was like, yeah, they have, like, it would be like, is it the CDC or the National Institute? Like, you just never see a bill because it's part of your outbreak response budgeting. And it's like, wow. So that's what it looks like in a country with a functioning government healthcare system. It is possible. Like, it was interesting because, like, obviously I've lived in another country that has socialized medicine. So I've experienced
Canada, right? It was
firsthand,
Canada.
and I know how it works.
That was Vancouver,
but
right?
she doesn't have those kinds of experiences. Edmonton, but
Edmonton, right.
Well, no, but that's actually key too, because Alberta as a province, it has some of the best, especially at the time, because they were doing a lot of oil drilling.
Okay.
There was a lot of government subsidy from like the oil industry and stuff. So Alberta Health was like one of the best provinces in the country. But yeah, you just kind of saw this look of like this oh shit moment occur on her face as he's explaining that, like, oh yeah, the government takes care of that. Like, that's done. You're not going to get a bill for that.
People don't think about people don't consider the residual effects of something like that.
Yeah.
The residual effects.
That, like, problems just magically, like, okay, yeah, and he was talking to me, like, the whole thing, like, when you look, Taiwan is a really good example, and granted, it is a tiny country with respect to the United States. But again, yes, they pay higher individual taxes, but all of their goods and services cost way less.
Yeah.
Like, a nice white tablecloth dinner costs about $40 out of pocket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, the average person may pay a 40 or 45% tax rate, but there's a whole lot of shit that you get for that.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. So
the streets are spotless, the air is clean, the buildings are secure, the transportation is functioning and on time. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. The whole country kind of runs like a Swiss watch.
Well, you know.
And granted, tiny country run by smart people, so you know it's a little different conversation to have. But that, you know, to lie to ourselves and say that we can't put it to work here or at least do better is, to me, like the cop out of the century.
Right. Well, you know.
Not to mention we already did it about 90 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the moneyed interests clawed a lot of their power back.
Well, based on right now, talking about the Democratic Party alone, you could just tell like it's split down the middle in terms of the direction of going.
And we talked about this in our text exchange on Super Tuesday. Is that it's really an indictment of the two-party system at large, and it goes to kind of everything George Washington said in his final address as president in 1791 or something like that.
Correct.
Where he warned against like political factions and like party interests trumping the interests of the people and whatnot. It's exactly that, because like in so many European countries or elsewhere, you'll have 3-4 political parties, and the Democrats would probably in reality be 2-3 different parties, and the same thing with Republicans. I think we really have like 4 or 5 parties in this country. And sadly, there's a much bigger white nationalist party or national socialist party, whatever you want to call it, than people like to accept. And right now, most of those guys just vote Republican.
Wow. Oh, interesting. I think all the way around, actually.
No. Not I was national socialist. I was using
national socialist.
Like
okay.
White.
National
socialist. I was using
okay.
coded language for like white nationalists.
All right. Okay.
Alt-right Nazis.
Well,
it's funny too when you think about it, because, like, for example, that I was talking to you about that show Hunters.
Yeah, you keep mentioning that. I need to watch that.
Oh, dude, it's great. And I mean, it's a caricature. It's like Inglourious Bastards, or it's like a grindhouse 70s kind of movie. Like, it's done very tongue in cheek on purpose. But there's also a lot of like raw, real facts in it too, and indictments of decisions that were made over history. And the fact of the matter is that a whole lot of Nazis got brought over by the Defense Department and the intelligence agencies, and what have you, during the 40s and 50s, in order to keep them out of Soviet hands for fear of what would happen to the United States if all these brilliant Nazi scientists and what have you were suddenly working for the Russians. So the truth is that hundreds, if not a couple thousand Nazis got brought into America, and they ascended to very high and powerful positions. And, you know, that stuff hangs on. And so to deny the history and to deny the racism and all of that, it's really shitty.
Right. So let's talk about Super Tuesday, because Mr. Joe Biden, the comeback kid, Mark, what a difference of a week. Not even a full week yet. Not from Saturday to Tuesday. Like, everything happened on Saturday. He wins South Carolina on Saturday by a big margin, which is not a surprise because that's his area. But we all thought, okay, well, he'll win South Carolina. But let's see, with a bigger map, 14 states involved. Obviously, Sanders was leading a lot of polls going to Super Tuesday, and boy, were we shocked. I know I was.
Well, yeah, yes and no, and here's why. When you look at a population density map of, for instance, of African Americans throughout the United States, they're most heavily concentrated in the Southeast and nearby Midwest. You know, those communities, those people of all swaths tend to lean more conservative, more moderate, you know, things of that nature. So even within a Democratic primary, if you're getting out all the black folks to vote, the far left candidate is probably not going to do it for you. Now, I think that there's a deeper flaw there in that, like, I when I look at the policy positions of the Biden campaign and the Sanders campaign specifically, I think that based on the historical iniquities and outcomes, that Senator Sanders' policies are in fact better for the black community at large than Vice President Biden's. You know, he speaks more to solutions. For example, you know, the black community remains as a group one of the poorest racial classes in the United States. Per capita, you know, black women suffer the greatest pay inequity. So, you know, these kinds of policies that Bernie rides the hardest for, paid family leave, Medicare for all, these are going to affect outcomes, I think, for everyone, but are going to make a whole lot more impact for the black community. However, the folks in that part of the country are just a little more conservative, and Joe Biden, it seems like he's kind of been there before, having been the vice president, and
right.
I think that works for people.
I think the shocking point more than anything else is the fact that we thought, okay, like I said, the Joe Biden win wasn't necessarily shocking. It was the margin, because we kept hearing on the Saturday that, you know, it's going to be a race. Like, Sanders is going to be within a certain amount of points, which, you know, percentage points, and it wasn't that close.
I think it's twofold. You know, I venture to guess that when you start, like, turnout is off the charts, kind of across the board. I think one of the numbers I read was that, for instance, the high water mark that was set in 2008 in Virginia was 986,000 in the primary, and they had 1.3 million in this year's primary. I wonder what the splits are on age, though.
Right.
You know?
Well, Mark, I don't understand, though.
It brought into painful focus a lot of the voter suppression efforts taking place throughout the country.
Here's what I don't understand, though, Mark. You know, and correct me wrong, because I agree with you. That a lot of, especially in that area, you know, from obviously Tennessee down to, you know, the Carolinas, Georgia, you know, Mississippi,
Alabama, yeah.
Okay, even if you're not Republican, the Democrats there, the older blacks Democrats are actually more conservative. We agree to that 100%. But,
yeah, they live their lives more conservatively,
right?
Like, and that's not like a political affiliation,
right? But here's my thing, though,
like by nature,
right? But here's the thing I don't understand, though. It is based on what, from my experience and learning and having friends and family I've been exposed to, that some live in those areas, some of them. A lot of that, though, is more on the social end, not the economic end. This is what I'm shocked, because to be honest with you, pretty much the entire Democratic Party, agrees all pro-choice. The majority of the Democratic Party is pro-choice. Joe Biden's pro-choice. So is Bernie Sanders. So a lot of the social issues, on abortion or things of that nature, they're more liberal on that end. So that's what I don't get. So economically, policies that you would think would benefit them, especially on the Bernie end, whether or not you think it's extreme or just idea that's not realistic, but it's still an idea. You'd think that more of them will embrace it, but they don't.
No, and I think, for better or for worse, a Jewish guy from Brooklyn just doesn't connect in the South the same way that Joe Biden does.
So you're saying it's a candidate more so?
There's
wait. So you're saying it's more the candidate than the policy?
Yeah, I do. Because I think that if you're doing a policy grading, Bernie's policy positions will create better outcomes for people in the South than Joe Biden's. And that's across the board. White, black, brown, yellow, doesn't matter. That said, I think Joe's personality, the fact that he's Christian, and just sort of his middle-class Joe reputation that he took from being a put-down and turned it into a compliment, I think that just sort of resonates with people in the South. Like when I think about my family in the South and friends down there and stuff, I just feel like, a grumpy Larry David from Brooklyn doesn't connect down there the way that When Biden can.
Let me ask you this quick.
The numbers bore that out on Super Tuesday, and they're going to bear it out. I think they're going to bear it out again.
Yeah, let me ask you this real quick.
When the other southern states weigh in over the next couple weeks.
Exactly, and Florida's is in 2 weeks. Let me ask you a question. Who was the last Democratic candidate we had that actually had similar views? Not named Elizabeth Warren, of course, because she's probably the closest right now, presently. But outside Bernie Sanders, who?
So are you talking about like the Bernie?
Like in the past, who's the last one we had someone like this?
The only one that I can think of who's even really notable is George McGovern.
And that's what fucking.
And
30,
he got
40 years ago.
And he lost the primary to Carter.
Right, that's in the 70s.
Yeah, so I would say, and then of course before that it's FDR and excuse me, just one of the greatest presidents in the history of our country.
But my point is though, in a span of 80 years.
But they were calling. If you go back and read the old stories and read about the elections in the 30s and stuff, they were calling FDR a communist and a socialist.
Oh, I know.
Deriding him with all the same shit they say about Bernie Sanders when he proposed Social Security and the New Deal and all this stuff.
In a span of 88 years, because FDR took office in 33. Okay, so 83 years, whatever. We've only really had 3 real progressive candidates that have broken through the mold, at least to the end of a primary.
Okay, so you and I talked about I kind of touched on this a little bit in the beginning, how I've been studying a lot of history of like revolutions in foreign policy. And one of the things that I have focused on a lot the last year are the successive and intertwined revolutions that set up the modern European American landscape. So that is the sort of concurrent intertwining British, American, Spanish, and French revolutions that take place between like the 1600s and 1900s.
Right.
And what is really occurring in my assessment is that whether you're talking about Haiti or Jamaica or Venezuela or Colombia or the United States, whatever, it's still us clawing back from, like, the Renaissance and the Middle Ages were obviously sort of the pinnacle of concentrated wealth and power. And then sort of post-Renaissance, you had this wave of revolution in the Western Hemisphere, to say nothing of all the indigenous problems that we encounter. But how this ties into what I'm talking about now is the same guys Like, Jeff Sessions is the same guy who was planting a flag in Haiti in 1495. And the rest of us are just trying to get something equitable to varying degrees from guys like that and Trump and the list goes on. And some of us have a better shake at it than others. Some of us, are able to get further, claw more back. But there have been a few times, there have been blips in history where some sort of global event has opened the door for a crazy liberal person to amass a really sick amount of power and use it for good. Franklin Roosevelt is a great example of that.
Right.
When you look at the economic conditions in the 20s leading up immediately to the stock market crash that facilitated the Great Depression, I mean, there were a number of other aggravating factors that we talk about that created the global depression in the wake of World War I, League of Nations, and all that shit. But specific to the United States, it created an opportunity and opened a door for a psychotic liberal, Franklin Roosevelt, to come in and really shake shit up. And he made things incredibly fucking difficult for the guys who seek to conquer, colonize, enslave, segregate, incarcerate. And they spent the next 60 years clawing it back. And guess what? We're at the same level of income inequalities in 2020 that we were at in 1928. So it's this, frankly, the same group of people have run the same group of people have run the world for a really long time. It hasn't really changed all that much, but every once in a while we're presented with an opportunity, a window, to throw somebody who's really fucking liberal, who actually cares about the people, into a position of power to help claw back just a little bit of equity for the rest of us who are getting the crumbs.
Right.
And I don't even, like, you and I, like, it sounds, like, obviously we live stable lives and everything, but still, like, it should be a little bit easier. It shouldn't be as hard as it is.
Based on history, though, it's safe to say that Bernie Sanders might be 12 years too late, because his time, because based on, after coming in because the economy crashed, the depression, all that, well, we had that something almost similar to that in 2008, and that would have been a great time for Bernie to come in a way.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. Like, it was the wrong moment for a moderate black guy, because what ended up happening is that the Nazis coalesced against him, the racists in this country coalesced against him, and Affordable Care Act aside, a lot of the things that we hoped could have been achieved were not. Maybe somebody who was a more radical liberal would have done better, but the fact of the matter is,
I think my point is
there was nobody on the bench ready to go.
I think my point is radical, quote unquote radical, would be easier to be embraced when the country is going to shit, as opposed to when it's doing well.
This is one of those times as well, and I really thought that, with everything that's going on right now, and that Bernie would do better, but watching the Elizabeth Warren interview today, excuse me. So Senator Warren obviously ended her campaign today after a really disappointing Super Tuesday. And she did an interview with Rachel Maddow. What's that?
Especially Massachusetts. Losing Massachusetts.
She did shockingly bad. She did astonishingly bad. And it just really sucks, because when you listen to her talk, if that was a 68-year-old white man saying what she's saying,
she's a nominee.
Thank you.
She's a nominee. And I said it today. I said it to my father on the phone. Like, Elizabeth Warren is almost like Donald Trump.
Yeah, and when you really sit there and listen to her, I mean, she sounds like a fucking president.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
and if our country could just get over its like bullshit misogyny,
oh God,
and get with the fucking program.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, and I thought she had a really good answer when asked about that today. You know, she was asked, so, you know, basically the elephant in the room, you know, sexism question. And she goes, you know, really this is a no-win answer, but I'm going to give you the best answer I can. If I claim that there was sexism, you're going to say you know, I was whining and complaining. But if I say that it wasn't a factor, there's about a bazillion women, literally her word, not mine, bazillion. Mm-hmm. There's a bazillion women out there who are going to look at you and go, yeah. She's like, there's a bazillion women out there who are going to look at you and go, what world do you live in? So she goes, it's going to take me a little longer to develop my answer on that question, but that's what I'm going to say for right now. And I was like, I love that.
This is what I told my
dad.
And
it's the exact truth.
This is what I told my dad earlier today about Liz Warren. Her and Donald Trump are very loud and direct. But the difference is
him up on a debate.
But the difference is Donald Trump is direct and chaotic, while Liz Warren is direct and cuts through the noise in a clear way.
Yeah, and man, it's just I don't know what it is about America and our cultural fabric that they can't envision a woman in charge.
That's just America, dude. To be honest with you, I mean, granted, there's other.
It really is. It's a uniquely American kind of sexism.
It's still slow. It's slowly turning, but it's still slow.
The fact that it's this, I mean, the stiffest people in the Western world, the Brits, elected a woman prime minister in what, the late 70s? Mm-hmm. Like, come on.
Yeah. I get it. I totally get it.
Golda Meir and Indira Gandhi, like, ugh.
I totally get it. What you dropped out today?
It's mind numbing because, like, for example, and I said this in the beginning, a Harris-Warren Harris campaign, regardless of who's in what role, to me, is the best thing for us.
Well, here's the real drama, buddy. Here's the real drama coming up now. Who does he endorse? Because let me set up real quick. Let me set up real quick for everybody. Because it's easy to assume that because of policy, like her and Bernie pretty much on 90% down the line agree on policy, but they don't like each other, and that's just out there. They don't like each other.
That's a misinterpretation.
You think so?
I know so after watching the Rachel Maddow interview, and I highly encourage you to watch it when we finish recording.
Why don't you explain some of the deets I missed?
So Rachel asked Senator Warren that exact basic question, and she goes, you know, Bernie and I are old friends. Like, we go way back, like long before I was ever in politics. He and I have worked together. She goes, the very first town hall I ever did was in Burlington, Vermont, at one of his town halls during a campaign year. They go way back to fighting for stuff because her whole life as an attorney and a professor, she was always, and she says this in the interview, studying how families go broke. And so in Congress, Bernie was, and particularly in the Northeast, Bernie was her ally. And so they've been friends for upwards of 15 years. And they have, she is deeply upset by the conduct of, what went on with Bernie Bros harassing staff and really, really, really ugly forms of harassment.
I've been saying it for 4 years, Mark, that there is an intersect between Trump supporters and Bernie supporters, and people say, "Well, I think I'm nuts." That's the intersect right there.
No, but look, there's liberal crazy people and there's conservative crazy people, and the Trump ones tend to be Nazis and the Bernie ones are militant Oregonians who drive hybrids and
Antifa?
are Antifa crazies.
Yeah.
No, look, that shit exists on both sides, and I don't condone any of it.
Right.
I'm nonviolent until you touch me, and then I'll fucking happily punch you in the face.
Hurt me, my wife, and my kid, I'll fuck you up. Period.
What's that?
Hurt me, my wife, and my kids, I'll fuck you up. And I'll probably.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh no. I mean, I carry a knife with me most places I go. I'm not there's that old line in there's a moment in one of the Avengers movies where Nick Fury is talking about his granddad and how he always walked through the neighborhood with a smile on his face, and he would walk through the neighborhood with his money after like a brown paper bag. And anytime one of the guys from the neighborhood would like come to harass him, and they'd be like, "Yo, old man, what's in the bag?" And he'd show him a stack of bills and a 38. And it was like, and the moral of the story was, Granddad sure loved people a lot. He just didn't trust them very much.
Oh yeah,
and that's kind of me. I love people, I just don't trust them.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
No, but so look, you're gonna have these fucking nut jobs on both sides, and Bernie as the populist candidate is sort of gonna be like the bug zapper for Antifa. You know what I mean? Like there's like when you look at sort of like the, I don't want to say political spectrum, but more like charisma spectrum, you have like populists who are like rah guys, your Trumps, your Bernies, Kennedy, people like that, that are powerful speakers, Obama in a lot of ways, that are these powerful orators that rile people up and they whip them into a frenzy. And then you have more subdued people who may not necessarily be the best campaigners, but they're the better governors or, things like that. Yeah, Bernie and Trump are both populists, so they're both going to unfortunately attract the crazy people from each ends of their respective political side.
So that being said, Mark, who do you think she endorses? Because Joe Biden.
I really don't know.
Because Joe Biden is scooping a bunch of endorsements.
So going into that interview, I thought, oh yeah, she's just gonna wait a couple of days and then endorse Biden, and the fucking thing's gonna be a wrap. But after hearing her talk about Bernie and the relationship that they have, and like while she has a frustration with him over this issue, and maybe she doesn't think he's going far enough on it, they've been friends for a long damn time, and I would not be surprised if she endorses him.
So if you had, okay, let's do this then. There's no percentage pie.
I don't love my odds, but I'm going to bet on Bernie after watching that interview. That might be a reactionary.
Give me a percentage on it. What percentage chance she endorses Bernie?
Okay.
Make one up. Sure. It's not,
No. It's like, it's literally like 55-45. It's not. It's
Bernie
not
to Biden or Biden to Bernie?
Like yeah, I'm saying 55 Bernie, 45 Biden.
Okay,
it's close.
Okay.
60-40, 55-45.
It's basically, it comes down really to whether or not it's policy she prefers versus better to beat Donald Trump.
So, okay, look, I'm just one of these people who maybe it's like a misplaced sense of confidence, but I just have always been able to read people. And if I kind of read between the lines on what she was saying in that interview, is I think she's going to have a conversation. Like she said, look, I haven't really given it a lot of thought. I spent today with my campaign staff and the people who've been with me from the beginning, and really kind of soaking this in with all of them. And then tomorrow we're going to start trying to answer some of those other questions. And then like Rachel Maddow pushed a little harder, and she was like, you're going to have to give me some space on this. But, and then it kind of moved on. So I think she probably doesn't fully know herself. I don't think she really knows yet, because she's got way too much on her plate to really be able to think about that. And until this morning, she was like, fuck you, I'm running for president. Like, Senator Warren doesn't speak like that, but you get the point.
Let's see. Sorry, though, but here's the thing, though. Biden right now, since Saturday, has been scooping up all the endorsements. Klobuchar, Buttigieg, Bloomberg, Beto, you name. The big surprise, though, is that Kamala hasn't said anything to me yet.
Look,
that's
a lot of this to me reeks of what Congressman Schultz did in 2016. And it's like, okay, his campaign didn't blow up. Let's coalesce behind the safe bet and not get ourselves exiled from the party. Val Demings and all these other people, they've come out, the governor of Michigan, blah, 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 blah. It feels to me like Hillary all over again in some ways, number one. Number two, it feels like with what Trump is very unapologetically saying about Biden and Burisma and Ukraine is that he's just going to drive a narrative that is in no way, shape, or form based in reality, but it's going to win in the White House. He's going to win based on lies because the people that listen to him don't listen to anyone else. And he's just going to sit there and lie to them, and they're going to eat it up with a spoon. So whatever the Democrats need to focus on turnout. The only way they're winning this election is on turnout. And so personally, I think Bernie is the better candidate, that his policies will do more ultimately for the greater good. I don't necessarily buy that it screws people down ballot if the Democrats were to get behind them. But either way, it's really I think Biden's really vulnerable to the whole Burisma thing. And if you can't at least use that to get you a whole lot of Senate appointments and render Trump useless to where you could actually convict him and impeach him, we're looking at another 4 years of Trump.
Let me ask you quick. So
status quo.
You still believe, forget who you're rooting for, forget fairability, all that. You still believe that Bernie Sanders has the best chance to beat Donald Trump in the election this year?
Yeah, because there's really, other than just standing there and calling him a socialist, there's nothing that, there's no dirt on Bernie. Like, there's not even like quasi dirt on Bernie.
But
there's already
kind of strong
thing.
enough. Isn't it socialism strong enough? Is that the thing that doesn't alienate the moderate voters that may not like Trump? Because there's a lot of never-Trumpers who I know, who I listen to, who don't like Trump. They don't want. There's quite a few of them who are okay with voting for Joe Biden, but they want to vote for Bernie Sanders. That's if you're a Sanders supporter, that's where you have to question yourself. Okay, is it realistic? Because Bernie Sanders represents something totally off the grid in terms of American politics. That's true. And here's the thing: you gotta if the Democratic Party cared less about winning and more about actually serving people like they claim, what they would do is coalesce behind Bernie because his policies are better than Biden's, and then put all of their muscle and all these endorsements and all this other shit into going out there and turning out the vote and getting people to understand that you can sit there and call him a communist all you want, and you can sit there and stoke fear about the Soviet Union, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't hold water. The argument doesn't stand up to questioning. I will say this though, Mark: if the opponent was not Donald Trump, just some run-of-the-mill Republican candidate, I would say yeah, go right ahead. But because it's Donald Trump, it's a little different. It's anything but him. Get him out of office. We'll worry about the details later. That's what the Democrats seem to be facing. There might be people who like Bernie Sanders.
Here's what I see. It's one of those things that, like, if the party would just get behind Bernie and AOC and put their weight behind him, I think they'd stop saying it can't be done, because we'd do it. We'd actually do it. And then so you talk about Bernie being a risk down ballot and stuff like that. If everybody gets behind him and everybody puts all their weight, instead of like pissing on or shitting on each other, and they just put your weight into turning out the vote, fighting voter suppression, and combating the false narrative, you're going to win the election on all fronts. And then if Bernie's in the White House, his policies with a blue House and Senate could actually do some immeasurable kinds of good. However, that ain't gonna fucking happen, because people are power hungry, people are self-interested, people are motivated by their own financial interests, and that just ain't gonna work. Bernie, there's a whole lot of rich fucking Democrats that Bernie's policies are gonna bite into their wealth, and that Elizabeth Warren's policies are gonna bite into their wealth. So, the Mike Bloombergs and the Jeff Bezoses of the world can drive all the hybrids they want and start all the climate change super PACs they want, but at the end of the day, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are trying to lighten their pockets, and they're not with that. So that's kind of the ugly truth in all this.
Well, real quick, let's do a final funeral for Michael Bloomberg. He's out too. Wasted what $500 million on advertisements.
Can I I don't know if you can put a sound effect in, but I can't think of a fuck this guy big enough for Mike Bloomberg.
You wrote a blog. You wrote a guest spot in my blog last week, and you said those exact words. Fuck this guy. Post.
Just go the fuck away.
Was it post Nevada? No, it was pre South Carolina. Sorry, pre South Carolina.
Yeah, it was pre South Carolina. It was it was right after South Carolina.
Right.
It was the debate takeaways.
Lead way to South Carolina, right? Fun times.
This guy is such a piece of shit. In a normal world, he'd be running as a Republican. And he's an asshole. Maybe it's because I've just known a lot of people personally like Michael Bloomberg, and personality-wise, that have that very sort of condescending, I know better than you way, and that get very defensive when you try to tell them otherwise. That's a lot of dudes I knew through my pop.
Yeah. Well.
And so, I just know his personality archetype really, really well, and I can't fucking stand that guy. Not him personally, but all those guys.
Well, what's so funny, though, is, in terms of policy, with all the, candidates, I'm probably closer to him than anybody else. Social, liberal, fiscal conservative, that's me right down the middle right there.
But here's the disqualifying part, though.
Okay.
He's a shitty human. He's an old fucking racist, just like all the others. And that's why he stood up for stop and frisk, and he challenged it in court. And at the end of the day, he doesn't want to see a bunch of fucking dark and homeless people on his block either. And while I don't necessarily disagree with everything he says about foreign policy or economic policy or climate policy, when you're that level of shitty on those kinds of issues,
just a fucking
especially
asshole.
When you consider America's larger history, sorry, bro, fuck you. I'm sure we can find another fiscally responsible cat who's not so racially problematic.
Right.
Because there's a lot of rich white guys that are, slightly liberal, but kind of in the middle of the road that just don't have that horrid history with women and people of color.
Right. Is there anything else for the political spectrum that we need to talk about before we go to your Lakers real quick?
There is one thing that I would encourage everybody to do. So, folks have a mixed appraisal of Sean King, and I haven't even totally made up my own mind.
Oh boy, here we go.
No,
I hate that dude.
Right now,
I hate that dude.
Okay, no, that's fine. But right now, he's making a really hard run to draw attention to this guy who could literally be executed any minute in Alabama. And I've done a lot of the peripheral.
He just died. Nathaniel Woods. He just died already. He died an hour ago.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Have you read the story?
I've heard the snippets. I just saw it earlier today.
It's worst of the worst of all the things to be true about the Southern legal system in places like Alabama and Mississippi.
Right.
The dude who committed the crime and is, I'm pretty sure, on death row for the crime that Nathaniel Woods was convicted of, confessed, exonerated Nathaniel, was then convicted of said crime, placed in prison or on death row, and he was never commuted or released.
Wow. I'm going to research this case and I get off this call.
Look, that's the one I was going to say. So, everybody can have their whatever on Sean King. I haven't made up my mind. Some of the, Blacktivist pages I follow really don't fuck with him.
Nope. I don't either.
And, yeah, I get it. I get it. People have really mixed opinions.
You know why? Because he's dangerous. He's a guy that cries wolf. Yeah, sure. The clock is right twice a day. No big deal. You can get it right once in a while.
Yeah.
But he literally has gotten people.
Is he a boy who cries wolf?
He's
tried to rush. He's
irresponsible.
Many times.
He's irresponsible, and it's caused more harm to people sometimes.
Okay.
When he got it wrong, too, especially, and he got it wrong also in the process.
So I was leaning towards don't fucks with him.
I'm there. Completely.
And then I saw him on the All the Smoke podcast with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson.
Love that podcast.
Huh?
I love that podcast.
Say that again, sorry.
No, sorry, I love that podcast.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So he did an episode with them, and that's kind of what has brought me back to them, put me back up on the fence about him, is I think while he's made mistakes, he's always really done it from the best intentioned place, and he at least according to his, like, I mean, it's really a question of, like, do you watch him and do you find him believable? Because there's not a lot of receipts one way or the other out there. It's just a lot of, like, he said, she said.
He's just irresponsible. I think what turned me off from him, honestly, there was one time where there was a commercial on ESPN in 2016 where there was like a fantasy football commercial, and Odell Beckham was actually the guy trying to be drafted, and it was a bunch of white owners trying to pick their guy. And he made a big deal about, this is like plantation, like stress.
Oh, it's like a slave auction or something.
Stop! Like, seriously, stop.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you stuff like that.
I mean, optics.
Sure.
Optics a little bad.
I got a sense of that. Like, he acknowledges that stuff. Like, that he doesn't always, like, he swings and misses almost as often as he swings and hits. Mm-hmm. But I think he's genuinely contrite and he tries to learn from it. And that basically his position is, well, as long as people are listening, I'm still going to try to draw attention to these things. And so to that extent, I'm at least like, all right. But every once in a while, he comes across these cases that, like this Nathaniel Woods one, that I encourage you to check out because it's really fucked up. Right. Like, just all the stereotypes.
Well, when I got this call, I'm going to research that thing in detail because now you got me more intrigued now.
Yeah, because like that's it. I went and did a lot of the like peripheral research to the case and saw the other stories and some of the other advocacy groups that are out there. And so it's like, look, think what you want about the guy, but he's got a lot of fucking followers, and if he tweets about something, people are going to see it.
True.
So it made its way into my timeline, and I signed I sent the letter to Governor Kay Ivey in his defense, and I'm actually really sad to hear that that he was executed because the Supreme Court even stayed it, and she went forward. That's really fucked up.
Yeah, the South is weird. Let's just say that. All right, before we go,
I'll use this really quick to make a very quick, larger point about the death penalty. That for most of my life, I was a death penalty supporter, and honestly, in principle, I get it. Like, there are really heinous people that I believe it should be used upon. You know, the Ted Bundys of the world, and Timothy McVeighs, and what have you. People who do really horrific things to children. Like, I get it, guys. There are some that are not up for dispute. However, the only way the state can take a life is if the system is infallible. And we know way too well that the criminal justice system is not infallible. Mm-hmm. And so as long as that's the case, we really shouldn't be wielding that power.
Right. Okay.
Anyhow.
Yeah.
I'll leave you with that.
No problem. No. That was good. Before I let you go, last thing we'll talk about, a little bit on the lighter side. Dion Waiters is now a Laker. We got rid of our problem about a month ago, and you guys took on our problem, the Heat, of course, and to the Lakers. So.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm gonna use your own text message against you. That you said you think he thrives in that.
I agree.
In
I totally agree.
Environment with so many leaders.
Yeah, I agree. I think he.
And even if you think about it, is he a Laker for 2-3 years? No. But that guy's got a lot more talent in him than I think people have been able to make effective use of. And in a team with so many smart, talented old heads and a couple of superstars like Rondo and Anthony Davis and LeBron and stuff like that, I think he's going to work out really well.
No. I agree.
And hey, he can have all the gummies he wants because it's totally legal here.
But the thing is, he lost the Heat because 2 years ago, after getting that contract where Riley put a lot of faith in him, he had the injury later on, and then he just kept missing games, and he was just a little bit of, kept missing practices, and, and just not being responsible and professional as buy into the culture and whatnot. And then, Pat Riley's MO this year was, we gave you guys a chance. We signed these contracts 2 years ago. You guys failed me. So we're back to square one, bootstraps and all that stuff. And James Johnson came in shape in October, but he wasn't heat shape, so he missed a quarter of the season. And that obviously it's worked because the Heat are doing really well this year. But Dion.
Whose career, like, if you just change the names, whose career you just described before becoming a Laker.
Let me see.
Think about it. Draft.
Is he current Laker now?
Draft.
Is he current Laker now?
No. He was past Laker. But basically there was a prominent Laker of the recent past whose career arc mimics Dion Waiters almost like to the letter.
Is that Brandon Ingram?
No, not currently playing.
Oh, he's not playing anymore in the league?
Correct.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Okay.
He's retired.
Oh, that's a good one. Let me think what's my heart because I want to get this one right. Damn. Give me about 10 more seconds. Jeez.
Played with Kobe.
You played with Kobe? Okay. Not so much Parker, obviously. No.
No,
not so much Parker. Who is it?
Lamar.
Yeah, but Lamar. Yeah, but Lamar.
Think about Lamar's career from having like he was, I believe, a number 1 overall pick by the Clippers. He didn't live up. He got kind of thrust into a position that he wasn't ready for.
He was good in Miami for a year.
Didn't live up to expectations. He bounced around a little bit.
Went to Miami for a year.
Of greatness.
Went to Miami for a year. Was really good in Miami for a year. Part of the reason why we got Shaq in the first place.
Yeah, he was really in the Shaq team. He was effective, but obviously it wasn't quite the perfect fit, and he had some maturing he needed to do. And then guess what? He got to LA and was surrounded by really smart guys like Derek Fisher and Kobe and Powell, and he thrived.
Let me say with the record, Mark, that even though I made fun of him a lot on my podcast this year, I like Dion Waiters. I do like him. I'm rooting for him to do well.
No, I do too.
But
you think he's a good-hearted human.
Yeah, I think he's a well-intentional guy. It's this maturity situation.
Yeah.
He's J.R. Smith light, I guess.
Well, and I think that's why he ultimately got the contract over J.R. Smith.
Well, he's also but I've been saying for years, Dion Waiters is a 6-man. He will thrive as a 6-man. He's not a starter. He's a 6-man. Instant offense.
Okay. But no, I think he's, the Lakers bench has not been particularly good.
He's going to help it.
Or not always as good as it needs to be. And I think he could be a surprise boost for this team in a similar way that Lamar sort of solidified his career as a Laker.
I'm surprised you guys didn't sign Jamal Crawford. No one's signed him yet. I'm surprised. I know he's a little older.
Yeah, that one, I'm wondering if he's worked out for people and he just looks really old.
Maybe.
Like he just moves old. I obviously have no insight whatsoever on that.
Fall time came while he was on the court. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, apparently J.R. Smith was just knocking him down during his workout. Like he was impressively good. But no, I think Dion Waiters has a lot of Lamar Odom in him.
So that's
that being on a team full of smart, accomplished leaders is going to bring the best out of him, and especially if you're only talking about a playoff run, not an extended.
And he's still young.
Period of time.
He's still really young.
What would be like 27?
Maybe a little older than that, but he's still under 30.
29?
Yeah. He's 29, yeah. He's still young. He's got a lot of time.
Well, yeah, because he was the number 1 overall pick the year LeBron went back to Cleveland, right?
Yes, he got drafted the same year, I think.
So it was like 14, 15?
Oh, was it the year before that? Was it? Let me look up now.
It was 14. It was the 2013. It was the 2014 off season that LeBron went back to Cleveland.
2014 went to Cleveland. I know that very well. Trust me.
So that was there you go. So it would have been the 2014 draft then. I think. That was Andrew Wiggins. Okay. So Dion Waiters was the year before. He is
28 years old. He's 28 years old. Okay.
And he was the number 1 overall pick in the 2013 draft, right?
He was the 4th pick, actually, in 2012.
The 4th pick in 2012.
Yeah.
Okay. He was Cleveland's number 1 pick.
Yes.
He was not. They didn't get the number 1 overall pick.
No.
He was a lot. That's what it was.
No. Again, he's a talented guy. I mean, play under his role, 6-man. I've been saying that for a long time. That's the role you should embrace.
Yeah.
and he'll race in L.A. hopefully, and for your sake.
If he's one of the anchors of that bench, with Alex Caruso and Dwight Howard, or however you want to configure it, that sounds like a pretty good. That's going to give the Clippers fits.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. By the way, he's rededicated himself to his Muslim faith. How old is this, though, is the question. Maybe an old piece, or I'm not sure. Oh, well. Doesn't matter. It's not important.
Interesting.
Not
well,
important.
Muslims don't do anything that intoxicates you, though, right?
I'm not sure.
By the way,
yeah?
In Steph's first night back, the Warriors, who have looked very pedestrian all year,
of course,
are down by 3.
Pedestrian.
They're down by 3 to Toronto at the.
Pedestrian being out for the world. I mean, they've been fucking horrible this year.
Well, I mean, it was a bunch of rookies and D'Angelo Russell, and now it's a bunch of rookies and Andrew Wiggins, and they finally got Steph Curry. That's what you and I were talking about this before when we were on a more NBA heavy pod. That don't sleep on the Warriors. They're kind of in the same way that the Spurs got snake bit as a good team and landed Tim Duncan. The Warriors got snake bit, losing KD and then Steph and Clay being injured at the same time. That it just ruined their whole season. But they're about to bounce back big next year.
Now I remember what I wanted to ask you, and I'm going to piss you off when I say this, but I don't give a shit. Because you replied to me in a text earlier today you want nothing to do with it. But I found out that the Hillary Clinton documentary I was asking you about on text earlier today.
Oh yeah,
that's out tomorrow on Hulu.
Yeah, I saw her she did an interview on Good Morning America or something about, I'm just so done with Hillary.
No, I get it.
I just want her to go away.
I will be honest.
It's just going to be her shitting on Bernie and Trump. Blaming them for why she didn't win when she was the least likable public figure the last 30 years.
No, right. But this has also been a documentary in the works for a little while now. The biggest thing that came out of this documentary was Bill Clinton admitting that he had sex with Monica because of anxieties, in the White House and stress.
Oh, stop it!
Yes, I'm dead serious, dude.
Dude, come on.
We're gonna watch it. I'll tell you what. You watch the documentary. I'll watch the Hunters show, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. How hard is it to just say, I fucked up. I did something I shouldn't have done.
He apologized finally on the documentary. He apologized. That's for the record.
22 years later. Congratulations.
And I ain't gonna lie to you, man. I already told you, I have a little thing for Monica Lewinsky. I have a little thing for her. She's
yeah, and when you listen, but you ruined that woman's life, bro.
Oh yeah, no doubt. But
Mr. President, you destroyed her life.
Yeah. At
22, and she's thriving now, but the last 20 years of her life have been a fucking hellhole. She was literally the first internet-wide joke.
I'm proud that she was able to recover. Honestly, I'm very proud of her.
Yeah, her re-entry to public life has been very inspiring, and it was one of those, we've talked about this a little bit before, but it was one of those stories where it really made you think about who you were as a person when you reflect back on where were you when Monica Lewinsky happened and how do you view that now?
Yeah.
For me, that was an appraisal of, wow, I was a piece of shit at 14.
Yep.
And I had no idea what was going on around me.
Yeah, guilty as charged. I was 17, 18 years old. The whole thing came to head.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was in eighth grade, and it was funny because we were in Washington, D.C., when a lot of that shit was going on, and the day we went to the Capitol building, there were, all the cable trucks outside in front of the Capitol the day we went on our little tour.
Yeah. Yeah, we were pieces of shit back then, dude. God, thank God we got better as we got older.
Yeah, but we haven't gotten that much better. I mean,
no,
on that
about me and you. I'm talking about fuck everybody else. I'm talking about me and you.
Oh, by the way, you know what? On a similar note, I want to make a plug for anybody who listens to this to go check out Corey Feldman's documentary.
Yes, that's what I want to talk about also too on that.
Okay, so this is really important. I don't know if you saw this on my Twitter feed, but somebody left a really intimidating message at his house last night.
I did see that. Yes, I did see that. Yes.
Okay, so you saw that whole exchange.
Was
he actually retweeted me. Yeah, and he retweeted me and shit.
Yeah.
So he was. I can't remember because it's been a few years since I watched it. I believe he's in that documentary, An Open Secret. I know he was discussed in the Guardian article about that movie. So there was a movie that came out back in 2014 called An Open Secret. It was a documentary about rampant pedophilia within Hollywood and how children were just getting sexually abused and raped, and the whole industry was covering it up, stuff that makes Harvey Weinstein look tame. Like really, really, really fucked up stuff. And then you think about that it's happening to children and it's just even worse. Corey Feldman was a part of all of that.
Yes.
He was sexually abused. And so he is releasing this documentary called My Truth, the rape of two Coreys.
Right.
And he believes that much of his, lifelong best friend, Corey Haim, he believes that many of his demons deal with his rape and sexual abuse, and that, his being raped killed him. The only way to view this documentary is to pay $20 and watch it live online. It's a weird release, but he couldn't, understandably, if you go look into the backstory on An Open Secret, he's had a difficult time getting this movie to pick up traction. So the only way it's going to happen is if a wave of people actually pay the price of admission to watch this thing. So I highly encourage anybody with the means, time, and opportunity to register for one of the two showings and watch this documentary.
Are you going to do it?
Because it's going to I bought my ticket last night. When I saw that shit go down, that people were leaving fucking wolf images at his house, I was like, nah, fuck that. I was kind of on the fence. I wasn't sure. But no, because, frankly, if I'm not mistaken, he's been an ardent supporter of Michael Jackson.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to get that because,
this is somebody who really knows, the entertainment industry pedophilia.
Let me, and it's part of the reason why I've always been strong on my Michael Jackson defense. Because here's a guy that's very familiar with the situation, who was close to Michael, and has been, even Michael had a falling out in the early 2000s. Never once, did
he waver on that right. Conversation?
Yeah,
and it just goes to show that and he spoke out pretty firmly against that HBO bullshit.
Oh no, he did. He actually backed up a little bit too because he didn't want to come off as this overly biased guy because he had to make sure that he wasn't being overly sensitive to actual victims, because especially him being able to release a documentary, but he was he's always been very consistent. In fact, he said on Good Morning America about 3 years ago, that during the '93 investigation of Michael Jackson,
the Jordan Chandler thing,
right? That the police had interviewed him and asked him about Michael, and he said he told police he had names of people that actually had molested him, and they didn't care. They wanted to shit on Michael. And he goes,
no, Michael Jackson never touched me, but these 5 guys did.
Right.
And they're like, oh, no, we're only worried about Michael right now.
Right, exactly. So, again.
Fuck.
I keep telling you guys, the Michael Jackson stuff is a distraction.
Dude, well, I watched the documentary that your friends were in.
Jen and Josie? Yeah.
Yeah, Jen, about the truth about Michael. And
powerful shit.
Makes a ton of sense.
Well,
it makes a ton of sense.
And again, the reason I know this is to be true is because I've known about this stuff for over 20 years. Josie told me herself that she was going to school with Jordan at the time at NYU. I knew this back in 2001.
You knew it when it was unfolded. You heard it secondhand as it unfolded.
No. She told me herself. I was my friends with her.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean. It's as things were being revealed to her, she's like, yo, this shit's happening.
Right. And then my friend Jen, who was in the documentary also too, she actually hung out with the accuser in 2003, the one that he went to trial for. She was at Neverland for a little while, and she had suspicions about him also too. The
whole thing that I've always come back to is that basically they had a fucking J. Edgar Hoover operation running against Michael Jackson for 15 years.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or 10, uninterrupted federal surveillance of Michael Jackson for an extended period of time.
It's funny.
Uncovered nothing.
For all the access he's had to children through his years, through all the years, whatever, you have 4 accusers, right? And the 4 accusers that come out all have major credibility issues. Major.
No, I've always kind of been of the opinion that I've tried to keep my mind open to the possibility because I don't want to be just like hoping the best for somebody that I've always liked.
Right.
But it's always, I can remember being a kid and when this stuff started coming out, like when I was in junior high and documentaries started coming out about stuff, and I just went, I just think this guy is so abused and so traumatized, and it happened in such a weird bubble and way that he's like a 1 in a billion psychological profile.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really don't know any other way to describe it, and there's nothing you can compare it to, and that's why it doesn't make sense, and that's why it's so easy to say, oh, no, that guy.
Well, it's easy to say because
there's so many things that connect to situations where that has been the case. But
he's also a eccentric guy, so automatically our mindset as people in living in this world is that weird, he's criminal. That's not the case all the time.
Yeah, and no, I think that this man had a childhood that was psychologically, emotionally traumatic in a way that was incredibly profound and incredibly acute. And then you just throw in the fact that he was the most popular human on the planet for a run of about 35 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's so funny, though, about the documentary that came out last year?
It's any wonder he made it as long or as well as he did.
Yeah. What's funny about the documentary from last year, Leave Neverland, it's actually a year, this week's a year since it came out, is that Wade Robson was always easy to figure out because Wade Robson was a piece of shit even before he came out against Michael. Like, I knew about Wade Robson way before even the allegations came out because he's been known to be a piece of shit from the word go. Okay.
Well, I always hated him because he's supposedly the first one that Britney cheated on Justin with.
That is correct. And actually, this is why the documentary is fucked up too. They don't tell you this. He cheated on Michael's niece with Britney Spears.
No kidding.
Yeah, he dated Brandy for 9 years. He dated Jackie's daughter, Jackie Jackson, the oldest Jackson brother.
Yeah.
His daughter, who's gorgeous by the way. They dated for 9 years, and he cheated on her with Brittany.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
No, I mean that whole documentary. You and I have talked about this at length previously, either privately or on the pod. But like that whole documentary, the Finding Neverland or whatever the hell they call it, Leaving Neverland. Excuse me. Like it's literally just the two of them and their parents. That's it.
Well, there's no kind
of like it just I watch a lot of documentaries. It just lacks so much credibility. It makes no sense to me that HBO got behind it.
Dude, when the R. Kelly documentaries are more balanced than that, that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? That's a problem.
Well, okay. I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying, but the R. Kelly one was also. Did you watch both seasons?
No, yeah, I'm watching season 2 at some point this weekend.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No, he's guilty as shit.
So bad.
He's guilty as shit. That's not even the issue.
Well, it's not even that like he's guilty as shit. How many other people are guilty as shit?
Right.
Like, went to really disgusting extents to facilitate his terrible behavior.
Mm-hmm.
That's the shit that really blows my mind.
Yep. Absolutely. What's funny about the documentary though too, Wade was the one that was easy to crack early on. The one I was worried about.
He just looks like he's full of shit. Like, if you have a nose for bullshit whatsoever, like if you're just one of those people that has an attuned radar for it,
yeah,
he just comes off as full of shit.
The one I was kind of concerned about was Safe Chuck, the other one. And yet watch the documentary and then seeing the things that came out after it because we needed information too first. And they wouldn't leak the documentary to anybody else or to the family before it came out. You had to watch it on HBO like everybody else. What we found out after the fact, there were dates wrong. There were dates totally wrong. In the documentary, you like to believe that during the trial in 2005, that his mom already knew about the situation with supposedly he got molested as a child. When in fact, in court, years prior, he never knew that, or her.
Yeah, that was the stuff from the Santa Barbara County trial, the last one.
Right. But in court,
2010.
No, not in 2010, 2013. 4 years after Michael died.
2013. Oh, okay.
Okay, so there's a lot of, and then him saying he got molested at a train station, which didn't even exist at Neverland until 94, which by then he's now 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's Jackson. I said something
like
empty fans are.
It's just it's way too easy. It's way too easy to poke holes in. And you know, and I've said this I think to you for a while. There's kind of people who I understand the person who says we have to believe victims, and they take almost too hard a line on that. Mm-hmm. I'm sympathetic to that person. Like, if that person stops listening, there's a guy on the radio I really, really like, one of the sports guys here in LA. He was a massive Michael Jackson fan, and after seeing the HBO thing, it turned him off.
Okay.
And he's like, you know, for me, it's one of those things that if any amount of what is alleged is true, I can't in good conscience continue to support that. You and I obviously ride on a very different horse on that front. I'm at least sympathetic to that person. I'm like, okay, fine. You don't listen to Michael Jackson, don't listen to Michael Jackson. The same person is not out there crusading.
Right, but here's my problem.
He's not promoting the movement.
But here's my problem with that person, though. And this is the problem with the Me Too movement in general. If you're presented with new information that may, in fact, tell you that might be false.
I think it's one of those things that, by virtue of the fact that Michael Jackson is dead, like, it's one of those cases that has to be settled before you die, or the question will linger forever, because there's always going to be people on one side or the other.
Oh, no,
you know what I mean?
But again, and this is where look, the guy.
But sorry, the larger point that I was trying to make is what I noticed is that there's that person who's like a well-intentioned, well-meaning person, but doesn't listen to Michael Jackson anymore. Really smart people that I know who ride hard for women, abuse victims, rape victims, Me Too, things like that are really smart people that I respect and follow on the internet and whatnot. Mm-hmm. They still fuck with Michael Jackson. I'm like, see, like, one of them that I think that, like, I remember seeing her dancing to Michael Jackson on her page was like Amanda Seales. And I was like, oh, okay. If Amanda's cool with Michael, like, no, it's fine.
Well, the impact the impact wasn't as big anymore, because once he got involved and once the stuff came out after the documentary came out, some of the stuff, the holes in the stories came out, Oprah quietly backs off on YouTube, takes down her videos quietly, which is why Oprah's a bitch, because Oprah did the same shit to Kobe when he died also too. Oprah and Gil King, go fuck themselves. Sorry, and Mark, sorry, I'm not a feelings guy. I'm a facts guy. I'm information guy.
No. You know, although in the fury of the whole, like, Snoop Dogg, Gayle King thing, a couple really positive things did happen, and we should bring attention to that.
Okay.
Number one, Gayle King totally walked it back and was like, I put Lisa Leslie in an uncomfortable position, and that was fucked up. Like, she totally walked it back. So I give her credit where...
Okay, but the reason why there's a lot of vitriol with this is because this is one of many times she's done this, though.
Did you see Snoop on Red Table Talk?
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that, because Snoop still, okay, and Snoop, as he said this in the last couple of days, like, he still agrees with his position. What he said, the way he said it, was wrong, but what he said is 100% correct.
I know, but here's the larger, like, Me Too thing that has to be recognized when we have this. Gayle fucked up. Snoop fucked up. He was right, but he did it the wrong way.
Right.
The problem is too many women of color get come at like that every time they open their mouth for every little thing.
Right.
So there is a due and justifiable sensitivity there. And so I get that. But I thought those, and if you watch the whole Red Table Talk, like, if you actually sit down and watch the whole episode, I felt like there was a really positive conversation had around, like, using that as a catalyst, using that incident as a catalyst to have a much larger and more important conversation. And I thought that larger and more important conversation that stemmed from the incident was really important. That doesn't change the fact that Gayle fucked up and she shouldn't have gone there.
But this is what I'm getting to. it's not that she fucked up. It's that this is a pattern now. She's fucked up multiple times with this shit. Here she is. Did she do this with MJ last year too? Also leading up to the documentary, but she's okay with Charlie Rose, her co-host, who got canned from CBS because of this similar situation.
Oh, you're saying like that? You know, she'll come out against MJ, or against Toby, but she won't speak candidly about Charlie Rose.
Yeah. So the hypocrisy is real in these streets.
Well, and a great, more current example of that is Chris Matthews.
How
many women at MS? You know, Laura Bassett wrote that piece a number of years ago, saying how she had been harassed.
But he acknowledged that too, though. He acknowledged it again recently as well.
But he kind of brushed it off too in sort of like a white mansplaining way.
Yeah.
And he said by complimenting women, and it's like, no, you creeped on him. Say I did some things that all you got to say is I did some things that I didn't understand were inappropriate at the time, but nevertheless they inflicted pain.
Mm-hmm.
Something I never meant to do, but I am deeply, deeply, deeply sorry for. You don't have to spin it by calling it a compliment. Just say what happened.
My point is
I said something I didn't know was wrong. It caused somebody an incredible amount of pain. I hope to learn better. I hope to do better, and I'm deeply sorry.
My point is this, though. Information is power. If there's information that can go the other way, consider it first before going down the rabbit hole, before you start doing things. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and we talk about that. You know, it's the same thing with like the Kobe news and everything. It's
exactly.
Like the race to be first instead of the race to be right. And again, Jamel Hill was talking about that on All the Smoke with Matt and Steven, to plug that podcast again.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about that very thing, and that, like, you know, in the world that she came up in, like the True Blue newspaper world, it was a big deal to get it wrong, because you couldn't just go on your Twitter and be like, oh, I was wrong about that. Like, they had to give up a whole column and issue a retraction, and that shit was out there in the paper, and it was prominent. Everyone saw it. Now it's just like, oh, yep, we get that wrong, my bad, and move on.
There's no accountability.
And sometimes it's really bad. You know, TMZ is kind of the nucleus of that.
Right. Anyway, great pod today, man. God,
dude, this was fun, right? I think we ended up running a little long, didn't we?
No, that's fine. We ended up doing topics. I like the Hillary thing. I went through it earlier today, and then the Corey Feldman thing. I meant to even add it, but I forgot. I'm glad you added it.
Oh, see, there you go.
There you go. So yeah, hopefully I might buy that thing also. I may buy it also.
Dude, I honestly can't encourage you and your listeners enough to like spend the $20. It's like three Starbucks drinks, two trips to McDonald's. Like, do it. You might learn something. You might learn something really important. It's going to make you uncomfortable. Trigger warning: like if you were sexually abused, or someone you know, or someone close to you, or that sort of thing that's going to deeply affect you. I imagine there's going to be a lot of triggering stuff in that documentary based on the trailer. So watch with caution, but I can't encourage as many people as humanly possible enough to go check that out, because I feel after having seen An Open Secret, the other documentary that came out in 2014 and kind of got a surge of prominence in 2017, I also encourage you to go find it on Vimeo and watch that, An Open Secret. The problem of pedophilia in Hollywood makes Me Too look really, really small. It's disgusting.
Oh, God,
and the fact that so many children are sort of left to their own devices and left in the hands of these predators, so largely unsupervised, is pretty horrifying.
Disney
and
too.
So
Disney also.
Have your tissues ready, because when I watched An Open Secret, I was crying like a baby.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it's shit that'll hit you at your core, especially like as a parent. You know, it's gonna fuck with you a little bit. You're gonna need to watch some cartoons. You're gonna need to watch some cartoons or something afterwards.
This is why I'm grateful that my wife and I are on our schedules, that one of us is always home, no matter what.
Right?
So grateful about that.
There's a certain peace of mind that comes with that, right?
Absolutely. Like, there's always a parent in the house.
Yeah, that's how I grew up.
Yeah.
My mom was a stay-at-home mom. We were fortunate enough to be in that position. And so, yeah, my mom picked me up from school and drove me to baseball practice and was there.
Yeah.
Either I was at school or I was with a parent.
Mark, anyway, great show, man. We'll talk a couple weeks. Obviously, as we get through the primaries again, we'll talk again in a couple weeks. And
yeah, so we've got a big one coming up this Tuesday and the following Tuesday.
How many states? How many states this week? How many states next week?
I forget how many is each week. I just remember from watching.
But it's multiple. It's multiple, though, right? Multiple states, right?
Yeah, from listening to Pod Save America, the Cory Booker campaign had called this week Grande Tuesday and next week Venti Tuesday.
Oh my God!
If this week was this past was Super Tuesday, and then so you have kind of these next two successive Tuesdays that are really important, and then I think after that, something like 80 or 90% of the delegates will have been awarded.
Okay. By the way, you'd be probably also too. I resubscribed to the Pod Save America podcast.
Oh really?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, look, I have a good balance of conservative and liberal.
Look, they're unapologetically liberal. So,
what?
I mean, sometimes it's just what it is.
Oh, no. I have, there are podcasts I listen to, like, I have a few conservative podcasts I listen to also, too. John Ziegler's podcast, who else I listen to once? Matt Walsh, Once in a Blue Moon. Who's another conservative guy? Eric Erickson, I listen to his show once in a while, too.
Okay.
So, he's conservative. But also I have Pod Save America, and I have a lot of the Ringer stuff. Larry Wilmore has this liberal stuff too on there as well, and yeah. So
yeah, see, I listen to Pod Save America, Pod Save the World, and Love It or Leave It. Like Love It or Leave It is just really funny to me.
It's a live show.
It's more like it's really more of an improv show than it is a political show. It's a comedy show for people who follow politics.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I enjoy it.
And so, like, hell, I even went to a taping. That's how into it I am.
I went to a taping a couple years ago. I meant to go to a taping in Miami a couple years ago. I forgot about it, though.
Do it. Honestly, it's a cool experience to go to a live podcast taping. It is kind of a cool thing, especially for you who is a podcaster.
Yeah.
Like, it's different. It's fun. It's kind of interactive. Like, you can shout shit out, but be discerning about what you're going to shout out and when. But I don't know, it's fun.
All right, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Oh yeah, we will.
Take it easy,
Have a great couple of weeks and touch base after the next two or so.
Got it. Take care, bud.
Take care.
All right.